Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Walk with Me, the podcast. I am your host, I'm Bédard, and I am very happy to be here with you today. There has been so many change, so many things in the background, so many things behind the scene, and I have been really sitting in. If you've listened to the last episodes, we've lost our dog Nanook in February, and I really got the opportunity to really sit in the grieving process and to really connect with that and the cycle of it and how it actually unfolds and how it is linked to things that happen in the past, the unresolved grief or the grief that is tangled with the other grief. And within all of that, I actually get the chance or the opportunity to do this in my training, the Sterbame Fortbildung that I'm currently doing. So for those of you that don't necessarily know, I am currently doing a 3-year training to become a death midwife and a grief companion. I actually do already grief companionship, obviously with my life change, accompaniment, but to really be with people that are not afraid to talk about a grief. In fact, they are exactly there for that. Like, this is what we're there to do. And it was just so amazing. It really led me to revisit a whole bunch of different things that I wanted to think about where this is all going, where the podcast is going, where my business is going now that we really are decided that we're staying in Germany, that we are building something here, a foundation in Germany and in Europe. And how does that impact everything that has to do with how I build the business and how I actually really think about that? Which is really cool because for a period of time I was doing a lot of online things, but now is really moving towards what I initially wanted to do, but kind of it was wonky, which is the incredible opportunity to start doing things in person, like presence thing, in person thing, which is really cool because you're going to have the opportunity to either work with me online or to come and walk with me in person here in the Black Forest. How cool is that? How cool is that? It's actually really cool. And the other thing that, really got me thinking about where this is all going is I got to revisit my why into, my origin story, my why into the incredible draw that I had to come to Germany and to specifically the Black Forest. So today I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to share with you what prompts a French Canadian from Montreal to sell everything and to move to Germany in the Black Forest. Like, what's up with that? Now, that is most likely the most asked question that my husband and I have. And for my husband, it's kind of interesting because if I'm there, he's like, just talk to my wife. And then I ask the person, do you want the short, the medium, or the longer version? Because, there's always context, bigger context. And when we are telling stories, we can have the cliff notes, or we can have the long story that really brings you into what happened within, how the characters, the emotions, what's the story behind all of this, right? But today I'm just going to do something shorter just to provide you a little bit of context of what prompted me, what happened, why the Black Forest, why Germany, why, right? So to give you a little bit of context, my husband is German born, meaning that he actually was born in Germany. If you have listened to the podcast episode that I did with him, I can't remember which episode. I have to check, but I did an episode with my husband, Harry Core, which is called Leap Year and Career Change, something like that. We touched on this, right? We touched on the fact that he's German, that he was born in Germany. And when he was around 5 years old, now my father-in-law, his profession is or was, because he's retired right now. He's like close to 90 years old, but his profession is diamond cutter. Like, who can say that? Like, what's your profession? What's your father's profession? Oh, my father is a diamond cutter. How cool is that, right? So my father-in-law, his profession is or was when he was active, a diamond cutter. So he's traveled a lot around the world. He's been to Africa. Like he's also from Germany. He's from a little bit further up than where my husband was born. And my husband was born in a city that was formerly or still called today the Goldstadt, so the city of gold, which was like a big center of jewelry, like everything that has to do with jewelries and watches as well. So it was like a city that was, and the history behind that city is really, really cool. There's a museum there's two museums. There's one museum that is actually like a museum of the history of jewels from like the antiquity all the way to like nowadays. It's, if you're in Pforzheim one day, I highly, highly recommend that you visit the Schmuck Museum. It's like amazing. I even brought my father when he came to visit us, and he was like flabbergasted how incredible. And there's also the Museum of Technical, like the technical. So you actually get to see like the machines to do the jewels, how to actually like make like rings and how to like everything that has to do with jewelry making is made, which is really also very cool. So my father-in-law, being a diamond cutter, he actually was doing some dealings in Pforzheim, and he actually met my mother-in-law, who was actually trained as a jewel seller. And they got together and they had my husband. And when my husband was 5 years old, my father-in-law had a contract. He was supposed to go to Australia. So he had a contract in Australia. And on the way there, he actually like made this stepping stone in Montreal, Canada, like for another contract. And he fell in love with the city. And he actually ended up never going to Australia. He actually stayed in Montreal. So my parents-in-law, they actually stayed in Montreal for like 40 years. And back in 2018, they decided to go back to Germany and to go back to Pforzheim. I remember like, cause after 40 years, they sold everything. Like they donated everything. They sold everything. They didn't even ship anything. All they had when we brought them to the airport, and I kid you not, all they had when we brought them to the airport, I'm going to remember this all my life. They had each their two like bigger luggage with their carry-on, and they had the cat in the cat carrier, and that was that. And we dropped them at the airport, and we said goodbye like we are gonna pick them up like 2 weeks later. It was unreal. And it really like in my head, I was so amazed at how like one can just pick up their life and just go, right? And they were already like over 80 years old. That's actually the interesting part. They were already over 80 years old at that time. So they came back to Germany, and we came to visit in 2019, in April 2019. And my husband, while he actually like he grew up in Canada in his entire life, he did come back to Germany in his early 20s to do his apprenticeship to become a brewer, and later on to become a master brewer, which is two different things. So the brewer is actually like the technical part, like it would be the equivalent of like a technic plus plus, and then the master brewer is actually like a master. It's really like how it's all the management plus side of what it entails to run a brewery from A to Z. But when he actually did his brewer apprenticeship, he actually did it in a small town in the middle of the Black Forest that is called Alpista. Love that sound. Alpista. Alpista. So he stayed here 3 years when he was in his 20s, and he did his apprenticeship as a brewer. The Alpesbacher Brauerei is actually like it used to be and all is still there. The monastery is still there, but it has a long history with the monastery, and then it became like more privately owned. And the whole city is actually like around the brewery and the monastery, and like all the different commercial, small business, like network that was made in that city that is in the middle of the Black Forest in the valley. So one day back in 2019, my husband says, so we're outside. My husband said, today we're taking the train and I'm going to show you the city that I actually did my apprenticeship in. And I was like, ooh, that's so cool. It felt so glamorous. I had never taken the train in Europe. I did take the train like back in Canada, but like in North America, the train is not, it's not a thing. So we took the train to that city, like, and you can imagine like the little like excitement of like, ooh, I'm going to see where my husband lived for 3 years, where he did his apprenticeship, right? And it was like glamorous because we took the train, and it was a train that was going through the Black Forest. So you can imagine like all that scenery, like going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And we got there in a small village that was nestled. And then when I say nestle, it's like nestle in the valley. And we get there, we got off the train, we actually walked towards the monastery. Like, in the monastery, was built in like in 1025, I think. Like, it's magnitude of time that we're not used to in North America, like that longer time of connection. Like, that monastery is like older than twice, at least twice the length that Canada as we know it, or the Canada like after the European came to Canada, was founded, right? Like, was started basically. Like, so we visited the monastery, we visited the grounds, we visited the brewery, and I was just like, this is so cool. This is so like, and it was actually my first monastery ever that I visited. There's pictures of me, and there was things that happened to me in that monastery that day that literally changed the course of my life and the frequency within myself. And at some point, my husband said, oh, do you mind? I'm going to try to see if I can find like the house that I rented an apartment, a room in. I said, sure. And then we're like going up the hill, like on the mountainside, there's like streets and hoping like up the hill. And he's trying to find the house and remember the house, because we're talking 30 years later. I didn't mention this, I don't think, but that was actually 30 years after my husband um, did his apprenticeship. So he's looking, and I'm just like looking at down the valley. So we're actually on the side of the mountain in one of those streets, and we're overlooking a little bit the valley where Alpesta is nestled. And I'm taking pictures and I'm taking videos, obviously. And then, so my husband's like, okay, like, I'm just going to let her do whatever she needs to do. And then like, after, I don't know, like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, my husband's like, are you still taking pictures and videos? And I'm like, no. He's like, what are you doing? And I answered, I'm looking at apartments to rent and houses to buy. He's like, what? What are you talking about? And I told my husband I could really live here. Now, if you're listening to this, like, when I said that, I don't say that lightly. Like, when I say that I could really live here, for me, it was so powerful. It was such a draw that I felt like home. Like, there was something in that place that really felt like home, that really felt like there was a connection that was above time, above this, like, that was transcending the time and even my own timeline of life, that was connecting me to even bigger. And I was left with some sort of feeling that that was not the last time I was going to go there. Right. So we left Alpespa at the end of the day. We went back to Canada. That was that. In 2020, we were supposed to get married here in Germany, but then COVID hit. Like, I think it was, we're supposed to take the plane on April 2nd, I think, and everything in Quebec closed like on the 13th of March. So we didn't come in 2020. Then um, I continued to do my life, and I opened my practice as a naturopath back in Canada. So I had like my practice back in Canada. And I was really looking at what was going on in um, our way of approaching health in general, right? And I'm going to come back to this part of my origin story in a later show, but I was really thinking about that. And I was in one of, entrepreneur community, whatever thing. And one day we actually like did a vision board. I had never done a vision board in my entire life. And I was like, okay, I'll do that vision board. And I actually did a vision board out of a vision that I had in my head. And basically, I put the vision board out there. And in my vision, I had the monastery in Alvespa, like the picture of it. But I actually like kind of edited myself because I was like, it's kind of like, how am I ever going to get from Montreal to that place? Like the logical mind cannot know the path. However, the purpose of vision boards or vision casting or any like vision projection is to really connect and really give a guideline to our unconscious to find the way. The how has no relevancy whatsoever. And this is where when we actually trust our path and we walk our path, we really realize how much that is powerful. How much when we actually lead through our soul's purpose and let the unconscious find the way to get there. And we as humans let go of the control and just follow the pings in our guts. That's where we actually get to places that are absolutely amazing. And so I did that vision board. And then that was April 2021. And shortly after, end of April 2021, shortly after, maybe a week later, I was sitting in my backyard and there's a contractor that was ringing at the bell at the door, and he actually came and he actually said, we are contractors, we're actually developers contractor, and we're offering to buy houses in the neighborhood that to actually take down and reconstruct over. Now we had a like really cute little house that was, and that's another story, but I was actually like build. There was only one owner before us when we bought it. We bought it like it was a estate that was, we bought it from the estate because the lady passed away. But basically, it was actually our husband that had built the house. And we had this huge, huge piece of land that could host two modern houses. So the contractor offered us over twice the amount that we had paid for the house. And at that point, we had already like thought about selling the house, like really pimping the house and selling the house to move a little bit more to the countryside, and or before that to kind of like buy an RV and move around through North America. That was actually the plan just before COVID, obviously. So everything was kind of put on a back burner. And when we got that offer, I actually sat down with my husband and we said, what do we do? Like, there's three things that are the possibilities that we want to do. One was to sell the house, buy something like a little bit bigger land, like maybe a little farm out, like even further away, because we were not in Montreal Island. So for those of you who don't know, Montreal is an island. We were on the south shore of Montreal, but like very close by. So we would have actually taken a little bit further away from Montreal. Or second was the RV thing, but it was still kind of iffy in 2021, where we're still like in the throes of COVID. And the third option was actually to come to Germany and to try it for a year. I had always like thought that it would be such a cool thing to live in Europe for a year or two. I was raised by, I never felt like I was growing up that I missed anything. But we did not have a lot of money. My mom was as a stay-at-home mom. My dad was working, and when I got to college and university, like I was with all these other friends that had traveled around the world or that had like European origin because like their parents were European and they came and they were born in Canada. So for me, it was kind of like the dream of living in Europe. And because my parents-in-law were like over their 80s, also, we thought it would be a good idea to spend some time with them a little bit more. So it would allow me to have the European experience, spend some time with my parents-in-law, and to see if I like Germany or not to stay. So we actually accepted the offer for the house. We actually had the negotiation part, but we accepted the offer and we signed the paperwork in June of that year. So just think about it, like end of April, vision board, beginning of mid-May, somebody shows up at my door, negotiation, and then beginning of June, we signed the paperwork. And we signed the paperwork and we had the chance to decide, okay, like if we want to leave the house in a year, for example, or a year and a half. But we have decided that we were vacating the house for end of October of that year. So think about that. Like we had a house, and even if we actually did a lot of sorting, we still had a lot of things. Like so in 2018, when my parents-in-law left to come back to Germany, we actually got a whole bunch of stuff that were sitting in our garage. And the same year, my dad sold the house that he had as well. So we had a lot of things. So we had to sort through all of that, obviously over the years after that. But at the same time, we were still like going through the motions of that. And so we decided, so that's actually a turnover of like from the signature in beginning of June to October, we're talking about July, August, September, October. We're talking about 4 months and a half. So within the span of 5 months, we turned around, sold absolutely everything, cars, everything. We didn't store anything. The only thing that we did was we ended up having 11 boxes shipped to Germany. I have 3 boxes at my friend's, which basically holds my mother's paintings that she did while she had breast cancer that I didn't want to bring right away. All of my family photo albums and like a whole bunch of like souvenirs from my childhood. That was that. That's the only thing that we actually kept. The rest we just sold or gave away or whatnot. And then we left at the end of October, and we had each of us 2 luggage or carry on and the 2 dogs because we had both Loki and Nanook back then. So we had the 2 dogs. So basically, that's how we uprooted our lives to come to Germany. And it's interesting. The reason why I'm saying that when my husband is with me and somebody asks us a question, they always say like why, and if I'm there, my husband said talk to my wife because his plan was not to come to Germany. His plan was to go to Costa Rica. So we kind of like made a deal of like, well, let's try Germany for a few years and then we'll revisit the Costa Rica thing. But for me, it was really like I wanted to see what it would be to live in Europe, to have that experience. And since my husband is German, then we actually came to Germany. So that's the story of how we got here. I am going to share more in the next episode on what happened once we got here and how did it unfold? How did I adapt it? What is it with the language, with the culture, with like all of that? And how it actually relates to the path that I'm walking. What was that vision? How is that vision becoming clearer in the future? And also, how incredibly challenging of an experience this has been, and how beautiful at the same time it was, and it still is. So, there you go. That's what I had for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will talk to you very soon. As you probably saw, there's been some changes. So now the podcast is available on YouTube. If there's video, you actually get the video. If there's no video attached to the episode, then you actually can listen to it. I highly encourage you to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or to follow on your favorite platform, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That actually really helps support the podcast, obviously. I would love to get your comments. I would love to have to receive your questions. Like, what part of this adventure um, that I'm currently living, obviously, are you more curious about? And how do you like the new format? And yeah, I just love to have your comments and to have interaction with you. So there you go. That's what I had for you today. And I'm sending you so much love, and we will talk very, very soon.